Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Mustafa Mohammed Boucher and today we are going to learn how we can create a template in Vanilla Javascript. So as we all know, we know that front-end libraries like React or Vue give you the opportunity to create a template as in a UI design template and use that template at different sections of your application. So for instance, if we have this kind of design, right, where we are displaying three images with, for instance, the image name and then for instance a URL link and name, right, we know that we are going to have that same design or want to have that same design at another section of our web page which also looks like this. If we are using a front-end library like React, we can create a component that is going to give us this feel and look, or Vue we can do same. But how are we going to do this if we are not using, for instance, a front-end library? So we are going to learn how we can do that using Vanilla Javascript. So if we jump inside the code, sorry about my voice. So if we jump inside the code, this is what we have. So this basically represents the first section, right? This basically represents the first section. And if we go down, this also represents the second section, which makes it makes our whole code look a little bit more worthy. Okay, it's too much code, so we are going to scrape this off and we are going to clean it so that we can just have a section where we can store the information that we want to display, and then we may have just a simple div which is going to do the display for us. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first I'm going to scrape this off, which is the second section. I'm going to scrape it off. Okay, and now if we save this and then we go back to our page, we just have the first section, which is this, which is displaying just three images. Okay, and inside our vanilla JavaScript I don't have anything. So what I'm also going to do right now is I'm going to copy the first section, which is everything inside this div. Okay, I'm going to copy everything here and I'm going to paste it here inside our JavaScript. Okay, and then I'll comment that one out. Okay, so when we come inside our HTML, what we're actually going to do is we'll scrape everything off, and then we are just going to indicate we are just going to leave one div, and for this div I'll give it a data attribute of, for instance, three images. Okay, so something like this, and I'm going to assign a value to it, and I'll explain the reason why I'm assigning a value to it right now. Okay, so let's save this. So now if we go inside our page, in our page we don't have anything displaying. So we'll come to our vanilla JavaScript, and what we're actually going to do is we are going to say document.query selector all. So we are going to query the DOM to see whether we have any div in there. Okay, so if we do, we are going to run a for each on it. We'll give it this. So we say for each element in there, we are going to check whether that element has the data attribute what? Three images. This is what we are going to do. We are going to check whether we have divs in there, and if we have divs, does that div or any of the div have the data the attribute what? Data three images. So that's what we are going to do now. So we say element, we'll check if element has attribute, for instance, data three images. Let me make sure that that's the same spelling. Yes, so we are checking. If it does, we're actually going to grab the information here, which is this 0. Okay, and I'll explain the essence of this 0 in a second. So we are going to say, for instance, the index. Okay, so we say const index is equal to the element dot get attribute, the data 3 images. Okay, so now we are getting this, for instance, this attribute. Okay, so now the information that we had before, which is this, realize that we had something over here. So I'm going to call this, for instance, title. So what I'm actually going to do is our JavaScript is going to lie over here. So I'm going to call this script, and then we are going to indicate the source, and this will go inside the what? The index. So we are fetching from the index. Okay, we are loading our JavaScript from this index, which is here. Now let me define, for instance, a script tag here. Okay, and inside this script tag we are going to define this constant called 3 images. Okay, and that's going to be an array. So inside that array we are going to have, for instance, an object. Okay, so this is the first item, and inside that item, for instance, we'll have the title. Okay, so I said this is going to be the title, right? So let me copy this and paste it there as the title. So we have the title. Now the information here, which is the image URL, this particular name, and then, for instance, the link here, and then the name of the button or the name of the link, we are going to give it different names. So inside here we are going to define, for instance, data if we want, or we can call it items, whatever we want. So let's call it items. Okay, the items that we want to loop over, and that is also going to be, for instance, an array. Okay, so inside each array, inside these items we are going to have an object. So the object, we are going to have what? The image URL, which is this. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to have the property what? Image, and I'm going to paste the URL there, right? And I'll make a comma, and then, for instance, let's type name, and the name is going to be this. Okay, the name is going to be that. So let's paste that one there. Sorry. And then we are going to have, for instance, URL. Okay, and the URL basically is going to be whatever we want to insert here. Okay, so for instance, I'm just going to indicate slash, just slash, right? And then we are going to have the button name. Okay, so which is this shop. Okay, so that we can change it, we can change the name. So over here I'm going to have another property called, let's say, button, for instance, button. Okay, and then I'll just indicate shop over there. So this represents the first item, right? Now I'm going to copy and then paste. So for instance, I'll change this. I know the image is 2 and this is going to be 3, and for instance, let's give this, let's say, Nike Air Pro 1, and let's make this Nike Air Pro 2. Okay, and the URL is same. For instance, we can make it, let's say, shop 1, and then let's say shop 2. So we have this, right? So now we are done. So what we're actually going to do is we are going to grab the information for, how do you call it, the title. Okay, we are going to grab the information for the title. So we come here and we'll say const title goes to 3 images. Remember, the 3 images that we are indicating here must be above the index script tag. Okay, it must be above it. So if you are going to store all your data information inside a remote, for instance, script tag, you must always indicate it above, because realize that this script tag is above this index.js. Okay, and we have these 3 images in there, so we are saying for the 3 images we'll indicate the what, the index, and currently the index of 0 will give us this, and inside there we want to check whether we have the property. So as on property, has on property title, and if it does, we'll do 3 images and it will get a title, else we'll get nothing. Okay, we'll return nothing. And then what we're actually going to do is we also want to grab these items. Okay, these items, and we know that the items is supposed to be an array. So what we would do is we'll come here and then we'll say, for instance, const items goes to the 3 images again, and I want to check whether it has its own property. So if it does, we'll do the 3 images goes to the items, else this is going to be an empty array. Okay, and then we'll end it there. Now what we'll do is we'll then come and then we'll say, for instance, string, let string goes to, and I will use the backticks. Okay, and then we are going to put this there, for instance. So let me copy this. This goes for the title. Okay, so in here I'm actually going to represent this with, for instance, the title. So let's do the $sign and then let's indicate the title over there. So we can pause right here and then test to see whether this is actually functioning the way we want it to. So you can just come down here and say, for instance, element dot, for instance, inner HTML goes to, for instance, string. So if we save this and then we save this and we go back to our page and then we reload, we get this. You see, we see the title displaying. So it means everything is working as we want it to.